Hello everyone, my name is Alckemy. Welcome to the channel. Today, you and I have a lot to talk about because I think that we have finally reached a point, at least for myself, on how to actually make full tracks or whatever in the world of iOS slash iPad. We're in Cubasis 3 today, and we are just going to start a new project or whatever. And I wanted to talk about some of the features with this and why I personally chose this over Logic Pro for iPad. So, just as a forewarning, if you're wanting to know the answer to that question uh, as soon as possible, if you're okay with working with exclusively pretty much MIDI, then you might want to go for Logic Pro because they actually have better synths, they've got better effects, they've got a more robust feature list if you compare side by side. But the thing with Cubasis is that it actually handles audio a lot better. It offers options for resampling, and that is probably one of the most important things when it comes into my own workflow. So there's a couple of tools that I have and some odd setbacks when it comes into this stuff because for one, there's no modulators or, this is not Bitwig by any means. However, what it does have is enough to work with and get started in a way that will make sense. So something that I would typically do in order to kind of start a track is to maybe start here. And instead of using something like the piano or whatever, which I don't think that any of these effects or whatever are that great, but where I might start is something like patterning 3. Now, patterning 3 is a separate thing, but I'll kind of just run this feature list with you of some things that I've accumulated on the iPad over time to make this experience a lot more accessible. But what I love about this is that I can pull up a kit, spend some time outside of the DAW or just with this on its own and open up a project. So maybe I'll, grab something like this. I don't even know what this sounds like. I did make it, I just don't remember what it was. But if you take a listen to this. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and set that to to like 85 because that's what I normally do. And if we play this again now, then it should be a little bit different. I think that was actually a trap tune or whatever, but what I'm going to do is we'll go ahead and add some very basic insert effects to this. So something that I like is the knot clipper. There are some other things that we can utilize for this. For example, there is also the transient designer from FAC, but this is just something that I tend to like. But what we'll do is we'll set this to a soft clip and just turn this up. Cool. Now what I'm going to do is open this up, and if we wanted to, we can continue to add up to 8 different effects on this. I'm just going to keep it on one, and I am going to just create a pattern here to where we have this. Now when it comes into resampling, there's a odd thing about this that is just a quirk, and it's something that you have to get over. But the good news is that it's at least functional. So what I mean by that is if I hit the freeze thing here, you can see that I can pull this out to a new track. And what's odd is that once this freeze button is on here, you have to pull this to a new track in order to start manipulating it. But once you do that, then you can just take track number 2 where it says that and delete it, and then you can unfreeze it or whatever in order to keep resampling. But what's cool about this though is that if we have this highlighted and we start to select here, we can split our clips, right? We can do something like that. But what I also really appreciate, which is something that Logic for iPad struggles with, is the ability to stretch stuff. And so if we grab this, it's a little bit finicky, but we can stretch this up to 99, all the way up to like 1,000%, I guess. So we can kind of blow this to smithereens if we want to, which is really nice. It's more than enough than what we'll most likely need. Now, one thing that this does not have is a repitch mode, but between all these different modes, what you can do is you can bounce this out, go to transpose, set this down to an octave, and then you can freeze this kind of like so. And then you can add a new audio track kind of like so, pull this down, and continue to manipulate this in a way that would make sense for you. That's, one way to do it. The other thing is what happens if you want to do some kind of resampling or whatever, where you want to maybe have a group or something. And that's where things can get a little bit tricky. But the good news is that there is an answer. And what you can do is just mute and solo whatever it is that you want to record. Or, say that you just want to take this, something of the sort. What you would do is you go into the media here, and you go into project, and then you do a mixdown on this, as you can see. So what will happen is after you go ahead and select that into your mixdown, which we go create mixdown, you can create a WAV file, and you go OK. New project, let's just go 2. You go done. Now what we have here is a rendition of this loop that we've made. So, and then we can just drag it right back into the timeline. And this is our resampling workflow that I've been begging somebody to do forever. And the reason why this is significant, at least to someone like me, is because what this means is that it creates an easier workflow to be able to continue to do all the audio manipulative things that I normally would. So if we listen to this, it's actually just going to be a print of that loop that we had, which is this L and R right here. But if we delete this and go mute, let's say we want to grab this, maybe, oh, we froze it. So we'll grab this, sorry. We'll go solo. And then what we'll do is long hold. And you can see here that we've created a loop. And then we'll just take this. And then we can do the same thing where we go media, create mixdown, go here, go 3, boom. Well, now this will render out whatever this is supposed to be. It would be nice if there was a preview. And one thing that I don't like about this in Cubase is that you still have to import stuff from the outside, where I know that Logic just recently added the file browser inherently, which kind of blows. But even still, what we're doing is creating a bank inside of all these mixdowns, and so we can recall on these for like resampling and stuff. So essentially what this is doing is creating your very own resampling folder that will be exclusive to this anyways. So it's not that bad. But having that into play, this brings up the next question, which is, how do I record, you know, modulator stuff? You know, or how do I jam things out? And the answer to that, if you're going to utilize modulators and stuff, of course, is to utilize my favorite plugin of iOS, which is Drambo. So if we open this up and we go into the Drambo effects, what we can do is maybe grab a processor rack, and then go into our presets and pull up factory, user, and we can go drum processor. And now what this will do is this will create different kinds of stuff based off of what loop we have. So let's drag this over here. We'll set this to long. And something else too, which is kind of annoying, but it's still doable, is that you can swap between the grid going off and on. So if you want to like get down and dirty with this and move things into the placement that you want them to, that's available. But now whenever we play this, right, let's start from here. Sorry, I know it's a little bit shrill, but the cool thing about this is that now that we have all that stuff, unfortunately there's no rolling sampler or whatever, but we can make multiple copies of this and then do the same thing to where we bounce this out to a different track, and hopefully we're going to get some weird stuff, which we do. But as you can see, like once we understand all this other stuff, we can start to cut this audio up and, you know, start to put it together in a way that's going to make a little bit more sense. So if I go back to the hub, I haven't really gone super crazy into this, but I do have one project. Oh, it's nice that you actually have templates, which Logic does not have. But if I open this up, you can see that I've sketched something very quickly. This is just a drum beat or whatever, but I've already gotten into chopping audio, moving stuff off grid, having things that are kind of on grid. Let me move this here to like 1/16 so that way we can see it. Fades, you can add multiple fades to different stuff. And then you can do group tracks as well. So, you know, and again, if you just want to solo whatever is in the group track, unfortunately you can't do groups within groups, where I think you can do that within Logic, but it's still enough to set up a sidechain routing. So what you do is you have your kick and snare, and then you have two different groups. One of them goes to your percussion, the other one is just your regular sidechain group, and then you've got two compressors on those. One goes to your kick, one goes to your snare, and then you can set that up pretty easily. But it's definitely possible. But yeah, when it comes into resampling and all that, you just, you know, solo whatever it is that you want to hold on to. And then when we play this, something that I also like about this is you can scrub the playback, which if you're recording onto like an external thing, like right now my sound is going through OBS. And so if I wanted to record this into my DAW or whatever, I could do that. But yeah, it's just a cool little sketch that I made. And that's really the most important thing with this, is that the audio is way more malleable than what we have within Logic. So if I want to do reverses, I could do that. If I want to pitch things, I could do that. If I want to do a scrub, it's not the most elegant, but I can technically scrub through audio from here, and I can grab something from this and set where my loop point is, which it'll play from this position. And then what I can do is go trim. So what you would likely want to do is create a copy of this. So we would just go here, we go copy, then place the playhead where you want it to and go paste. Now within this, what we can do is kind of cycle through where this is, and we can change the grid if we want to on this to, like, I don't know, let's say 130 seconds. I can go to there, I can go to here. And you'll notice down in the bottom quarter, there's a different playhead that we have on here. But this is going to play just what's inside the clip. And then we can go trim, and then now we've got a brand new thing. And so, like I said, the workflow is very different, but it is usable. And like I said before, you know, you can mute these tracks and stuff to just resample what you want to. And one other cool thing that I do find to be super valuable is that you can't, it's annoying because you can't see it on here, but if you pull up the mixer and you go to the master all the way over to the right, you'll see that there's an effect list. And you'll see that I've got, for one, a clipper, and then also just how loud is this. But I can place master effects on here, run that through the mill, bounce it, do the same thing, and continue to kind of keep getting audio for whatever it is that I want. So when it comes into actual synths and stuff like that, there's a few things that I think are very important to, for me anyways, that make this process a lot easier. For one, I love Drambo. That's like a must. Drambo, if you have a phone or an iPad, Drambo is the way. I've made several videos on this, and if you're watching this video and you don't check out anything else and you're like interested in iOS stuff, go look at Drambo. The second thing that I think is super important, which I'll pull these up so that way you can actually take a look at what's going on. Let's actually do this with these individual things, I think would be better. Drambo would be the number one thing. The second thing that I absolutely love, which is actually on my homepage, I think, is patterning 3. I've got a video review on this, but this is one of the best drum sequencers that's so great for like just sketching ideas. I mean, I've made a lot of beats on this and just be like, oh, that's a cool beat. Oh, that's a cool beat. So hold on, let me see here. Open. And I can just pick any of this stuff, and I know that it's going to be something that I liked, otherwise I wouldn't have saved it. That was kind of silly. Merry Christmas, you bitch. No, I'm just kidding. So anyways, even though the drums themselves are just based off of the samples that you place into them, because this has different grooves and nudging and chance and probability and ratchet or whatever, you can throw this as a UAV inside of Cubasis and then bounce, which is what I've done on this track here on these guys, and just cut it up and then started to apply different effects and whatever I needed to the individual sounds. So, you know, there's that. And then you can do sound design specifically for kicks and snares and stuff within Drambo because it's actually easier to just record that. And you can design all that stuff. But yeah, so Drambo patterning 3 is an absolute must for me. This other stuff is really nice. Harmony Bloom is great, but when it comes into synthesizers, your main stuff is Twin 3 is good. Quanta is a really good, what's it called? Granular synth. Butter synth is like borderline equivalent to Serum just because it's got 2 wavetables. It actually has a wavetable maker in it. Shout out to the devs of this, but you can do a pen to where you can just draw something in, then go like this. And now in this frame, you can do something different. And then if we go here and morph, then there you go. Boom, wavetables. Awesome. It's got FM, it's got different FM modes or different syncs and warp modes. And then it also has a larger list of effects compared to Serum and Vital because it's got all of these. And even though you can only have one instance of it, it's still pretty cool. The reason why I don't use this a whole lot though is because it's very buggy, unfortunately. This crashes a lot inside of Drambo and it upsets me because I lose the patch. If you need a beat slicer, there is the slice here. There's also Koala Sampler, which if you're just used to working in MIDI and slicing beats, then you can do that. But what I love about the Koala Sampler is that you can import videos and then that will change that. This also has stem separation built into it. So if you import a song or a video and it's got full music, then it will like take everything that you want, which is really nice. The only thing is that you can't do recording, or at least it's really difficult to do live recording within this while this is being hosted in another DAW, but it is possible. Some other stuff that is kind of like essential, I believe. This is a really cool slicer. The Sector, it's just a mangler thing that runs as a, what is it, a in-app audio. And the significance behind this is that you can chuck stuff in it and it will just kind of like glitch things up, but you have to run it inside of, or you don't have to, but it helps if you run this inside of Cubasis. And so what's cool is that if you just pull this up, maybe, let me go here. I think that it's having a hard time pulling that up or whatever. But what's cool about this is that you can, use these things of the Sector, or, anything like even Impactor, which are those separate apps that don't run as a plugin, and then you can record that into your DAW, and that automatically works. Whereas that doesn't work at all in Logic. It has to be a AUV3, which is just, an annoying plugin format. Which hopefully Sector, as a side note, still makes an AUV3 version, but that is a nice kind of like alternative since you don't have all the bells and whistles that you do from Logic Pro. And then finally, just some effects that I would recommend. For one, you can get the FabFilter stuff on here. So there's somewhere in here, Pro Q3, Saturn 2, you can get Pro L2 if you want. Timeless, as you can see, Volcano. I'm a big fan of Harmony Bloom because this thing can create some really cool melodies and rhythms for you that if you've watched my Silent Hill stuff, you'll see that I use that in tandem with the Quanta in order to create like really cool, really cool just pads and textures and stuff. There's custom convolution reverbs if you need that. But like what I'm trying to drive here is not like, this isn't like a buying list. This is just being like, hey, everything that you need pretty much in order to make the kind of music that you're used to. If you're okay with taking a small downgrade of flexibility, especially if you're coming from something like Bitwig, is all there. Because if you think about it, if you open up Drambo, like this is basically your Bitwig / Ableton, If I open this up and, sorry, let me just find an instrument rack here. And I don't need to like play this for you, but if we look at some of the stuff that we have on this, you'll see that I've got snare makers. You'll see that I've got just different racks of things. Audio unit racks, which is really nice. Let's open up some other presets to where you can see like some LFO stuff. So if I go chill snare, chloroforma, crazy drums, I think that this is supposed to be thrown on other stuff, but this all has like all of the modulators and stuff that you want. And this is kind of like the best complement that you could have to both Cubasis and Logic, because Logic also doesn't have anything like that of the sort. If we go to Easy Neuro, you'll see that this has a built-in wavetable synth, which unfortunately it doesn't have a wavetable maker, which drives me crazy, but it's got random sine, random triangle, sample and hold, so there are your modulators, notch filters, clipper if you want to. I use the not clipper or whatever, but you get what I'm saying? Like it's all here. So now that we have that, especially if you get a more recent iPad, this one is an M2, like you can make full-blown tracks on this now, and there's not really anything holding me back anymore to be like, you know what, I don't want to work on my computer for a month. I just want to make beats like this. And then maybe I sketch as good as I can on this, take it to the computer and just bounce out the stems, because I believe that this has the stem support if you wanted to, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. Create mixdown, tail effect, between locators, exclude all effects, create separate files for tracks. Yeah, so you can just do that and kind of get your groups and stuff going however you want to, but it's all here. This was the last thing. This is what I've been asking for, is some kind of audio arranger that has some kind of resampling / time stretching capabilities. It's unfortunate that Logic has such an ass workflow. And I'm not trying to like crap on Logic for iPad, but this is one of the biggest complaints that I have is that as opposed to being able to cut up audio clips like this, it does it per track. So if you time stretch this track, that means that you have to create another track with different warp modes and different timing and stuff in order to get what you want. And the thing that also drives me crazy is that if you reverse your sample, then you have to give up your time stretching. So you can't time stretch something and then reverse it. You have to reverse it, bounce it, and then time stretch it. But then when you do that, it has to go on a new track. And while it's possible, that's way too many steps for a very simple thing that should just be at the top corner. That should just be reverse. Whereas maybe this isn't quite as obvious, but if you double click this and you just go bloop, why is it that hard? It shouldn't be that hard. So if you're wondering why I chose that, that's why I went with Cubasis. Also, Cubasis is $25 right now. They didn't sponsor me. They actually have no idea that I exist probably, but this is definitely a DAW that is capable of sequencing audio provided that you've already got the sound design down or you've got your loops or you know how to put your beats together. But this is more than adequate. Yeah, of course, I would love to see them have access to more effects, which I don't get why you can only have 8. I don't like that you can't internally record, so you can't send a channel to record another channel, which is really annoying. You don't have groups within groups, and there's just not a lot of flexibility when it comes into routing in general. But from bouncing in place, which would be the freezing, which they should just add bounce in place anyways, as opposed to the freeze thing, whatever. It's still doable. Yeah, if they could add a few extra bells and whistles like that, then I'd be more than happy to advocate for this DAW even more. But I guess that this is just a limitation or a set of limitations that I feel comfortable working around, if that makes sense. So anyways, I wanted to give you all just kind of a description and, like hey, this exists. And if you have an iPad, like you can make the same kind of music that I do on this uh, with however you want to record and blah, 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 I've talked about making neurobasses. I've talked about making big drums and all that stuff. Like all the resources are there now for you to make the music that you want to on an iPad if you can just get over a couple of technical hurdles. So with that, that's pretty much all I got. Thank you all. If this was interesting to you, I'd really appreciate it if you can like the video. And if you like my sounds, then check out alchemy.com or book me for a lesson and we can throw down on like iPad stuff or Bitwig or whatever it is that you are into. Thanks, everybody. Have an awesome rest of your evening and happy holidays.